Yeah, if it had been Bex, it would have been.
Are we live?
You're live.
Great. Good evening and welcome to the Hatfield School Committee meeting. It is Monday, June 10th at 7 o'clock, and I'm calling this meeting to order. My name is Connor Driscoll. I'm the superintendent. I'm calling it to order as we have a new committee meeting. So welcome to Iman Green, our new school committee member.
Thank you.
And our first item on the agenda is a committee reorganization. So if there's a move to reorganize the committee, I'll hear that.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to reorganize the school committee and nominate Christy Boudreau as the chair.
I second.
All right, a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, this requires a roll call vote.
Okay.
Sullivan, aye.
Iman, aye. Bench, aye.
Engelhardt, aye.
Boudreau, aye.
All right, that's a 5-1, and I'll hand it over.
Why, thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion for vice chair candidates.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Kathy Engelhardt as vice chair.
I would second that. Take a roll call vote.
Sullivan, aye.
Green, aye. Bench, aye.
Engelhardt, aye.
Boudreau, aye. So aren't we efficient? We seem so efficient. No discussion. I would be interested in taking, because this still classifies as part of reorganization. My interest is hearing from everyone on committee assignments because we do have some new membership, and to take a look at that. I think we may need a little more time to have that conversation. So not seeking to make any subcommittee conversation votes kind of stuff tonight. However, business needs to keep moving, and there is policy that's in the works that probably needs to be addressed before July, and finance always an opportunity to keep the committee involved. So if the committee would entertain just keeping the status quo assignments through June, and that by the time we meet in July, we would talk about subcommittee appointments. Is that something that would be acceptable to
Totally.
folks?
Has happened before.
I would
Okay.
like to make that motion
So you'd like to move?
to continue subcommittee assignments as previous until the July meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Adam Sullivan seconded Becca Bench's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And just for what it's worth, having gone through a little bit of audio assisted AI minute taking, I may be making sure that we say names just to help our minutes. So
Okay.
I'm not usually that particular, but I think it will help us. And with that, we turn to public comment. And I recognize we have two guests with us and would welcome you to address the committee if you would be interested.
You're going to have to excuse me. I have a
Oh, sure.
implant, and I have a very difficult time at this distance.
We would welcome you to say a few words and speak to the committee. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you like to take the hot seat so that our viewers can hear you?
Whatever I need to do.
Okay.
My name is Tom Totaro. I'm the commander at the American Legion here in Hatfield. This past Memorial Day was pretty disappointing for us when most of the band decided to leave town for the weekend. For veterans, especially combat veterans and combat veterans who lost friends at war, it was hurtful. I would like to see something in the schools to educate the kids that are in there now the importance of that day. I'm a baby boomer. Fran is a baby boomer, maybe a little older than a baby boomer, but it's the way we grew up. My father was a World War II vet. All my uncles were World War II vets. On Memorial Day, you were at a ceremony somewhere, no matter what town you lived in. and it seems to be disappearing. And it's pretty disheartening for us that have served. And I would like to see something done on the school level so that kids know the importance of that day. It's not the beginning of summer. It's not the first weekend of summer. It's remembering men and women who gave their lives in the defense of this country. So I would like some sort of a commitment, the Legion would like some sort of a commitment that the kids will get some sort of an education on the importance of that day. Thank you.
I appreciate you speaking. Thank you. It is in our policy and practice that we do not comment on what is shared through public comment. I would, with the committee's blessing, would like to make an exception to that in the rare case of tonight and extend an apology to the Legion and to all who have served, because we should have had a band there, even if it wasn't our very best band. I wish that had been different.
Yeah, we do too, and I understand the band director's predicament being new this year, and most of the kids in the band are fairly new, a lot of middle schoolers. But I think it goes to the parents that, if you're going to be in the band, Memorial Day is the most important band day for Hatfield.
Dr. Driscoll, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I would just like to, again, thank you. I know we had sat down and had a meeting and discussed ways that I hope that we can partner with the Legion and the veterans organizations to do some of that education for our students in and around Memorial Day. I think that's critical. And I look forward to making sure that our band is represented at that event going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now is the time to speak up, because new school days are right around the corner. And that's when the expectation needs to be set, is in September.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you coming, gentlemen. With that, we'll move on. Every month we kick off with a mission moment, ways that we see our mission come to life in the school district. Does anyone have a mission moment that they would like to share?
I do.
Yay.
Graduation is my mission moment from this month. On Friday, we celebrated our graduates. We had 20 graduates and 19 were on the stage. All students who are headed to their next chapter, whether that be the workforce, whether that be college. They're all headed off, and it was a beautiful ceremony. A big thank you to Jackie and Riley, as well as Christelle Boyle, for making that ceremony happen. It was a really nice send off for our seniors.
We have been giving lots of to the elementary school, even now in the spring. So we are definitely welcoming a lot of nice families, and we had our final all-school meeting today where we celebrated and honored our volunteers, but also said thank you and for her dedicated service to Ms. Hoy, as this was her final all-school meeting. So we were able to all stand and give her a round of ovation for her dedicated service to our students.
Other mission moments? I would also like to recognize that while she couldn't be with us tonight, that Dr. Brimner has given the district an immense amount of service in her 3 years with us. This is the last meeting before she moves on to become Dr. Principal Brimner in New Hampshire, and we wish her well and thank her for all that she did for the district. She brought an immense amount of knowledge with her and dedication to seeing that all of our processes were completely where they needed to be, and a passion for students. So Molly may not see this, but you can pass along our thanks.
Absolutely.
As we look at the consent agenda, I just want to recognize that we need to pull May 6th off of the list of minutes. So is there anything else we need to pull off the meeting minutes? So just to clarify, for the sake of our recording, we are approving July 12th, 2023, which just had been written, but just didn't get into an approval stage for some reason. February 12th, March 11th and 25th, April 10th, and May 15th. So with that, those are approved. And we can move on to administrative reports. All you.
Um, uh, so I think everyone has the written reports that we submitted, so I won't go through everything I wrote. But I would like to just comment on a couple things. First of all, was an acknowledgement and recognition of our retirees for this year at the elementary school, Miss Way, at the high school, Miss Shockey as well as Miss Kaczynski are retiring. And a big thank you to them for their contributions over their years to both Smith Academy and Hatfield Elementary School, as well as a thank you to Dr. Bremner for all she's done her last 3 years here. You'll see as we get go forward this evening, a significant number of transfer requests, mostly to balance lines towards the end of the year, as well as to kind of set us up with some of the savings we had primarily from the administrative shift this year to do some work and kind of get ahead of some of the infrastructure work that we've been needing to do at the elementary school as well as Smith Academy. We had our last in-service day was the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, that Friday. Across the district, there was a number of things going on. We had a group from UMass that came and worked with our staff. And they were doing an inventory of social emotional learning and practices at both schools. So kind of taking a baseline of how what practices are being done right now, and to set us up for any kind of recommendations down the line that they may have for our schools, which is nice. Additionally, teachers at the high school level worked on wrapping up some of their interdisciplinary work, reflecting on that work, and next steps for further implementation. My computer's not working, so I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head if there's anything else I wanted to highlight. So some of the infrastructure projects that we're talking about are the replacement doors at HES, which still need to get done. The video security cameras that we have at both schools right now, Smith Academy is on 2 different systems. We have one system that's an older system, and one by one, the screens are blacking out as those cameras die. And the other half of the system is on the new Verkada system, so we'd like to move fully onto that, as well as do that at the elementary school as well. And another large project that we're excited to get done at Smith Academy is the backups for our for our internet. When the power goes out, we lose internet, and currently, when the internet goes down, we lose phones. So that's problematic. So we're looking forward to getting that solved as well.
Most of those, I think everything falls into sort of safety
Mm-hmm.
concerns.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where that is. Did you also want to talk about the summer?
Oh,
reading?
absolutely. Yeah, that wasn't in the report. But it seems timely, given that we're going to be talking about our cell phone policy this evening, giving it the second reading, and likely reviewing that policy. On a parent recommendation, I've been reading a book that I'm hoping we can get some community read of this summer. It's called The Anxious Generation. It's about the impact specifically of smartphones and social media on youth and children, and what the data has been telling us and really kind of showing us. And it tracks with some of the discussions we've been having as a committee about needing to and wanting to revamp our cell phone policy, as well as conversations that have been happening quite often at Smith Academy, both with staff as well as with students and parents. So we're looking forward to being able to back up some of those decisions that we're making with some of the science and the data that's coming out around those impacts. And this book does a really nice job of kind of putting that together. And so in the coming weeks, folks can anticipate an invitation to participate in a kind of a summer reading project if they'd like to, and have some conversations about what we can do, not just in our policy, but also in our practice around really around social media and cell phones specifically.
This is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about,
Full disclosure, I haven't read the whole thing yet. I'm still in the middle of it, but
we talked about ways that we might be able to loop in the Hatfield Public Library,
Mhm.
have some copies available for families to borrow from us to read, so that we could, and then set up a conversation time so people could come together and actually, it's not quite book club, but maybe we could have beverages, I don't know,
Yeah.
snacks.
Loop in Hatfield
we
Book
could
Club.
look at Loop in the Book
Book
Club
club.
too. There was just there you go.
Maybe outside of what they typically read, but maybe not. They're a great
At least
partner.
extend the offer.
Sure. And it fits into our DIP plan for greater involvement with the community. So, questions to Dr. Driscoll?
I have one. It is not the most preeminently important question, but as I did get another email asking me to bring a physical check to the school, I'm wondering if we had any further updates on the online payments for
Those will be
Care Inbox.
they will be ready to go for next school year.
Amazing.
Yes, they will be set to go.
I was hoping
We-
that was the last
we-
such check I was going to be delivering.
We were poised to do it this month,
Yeah.
and I felt it would have been a little confusing for the last check of the year that people might write
Yep.
to be done that way.
Totally understandable.
So we're gonna roll it out fresh and new in the fall.
With
Thrilled to hear
lots of
it.
communication.
Lots
Gotta
of
do it.
communication and
Is there
fanfare.
any,
Excellent.
so much
I'm
fanfare.
I will boost it personally.
Yes.
Is there anything that parents will still need to write a check for, or will everything be something that they could pay through school bucks?
There still will be some things if there are one-offs, if they like field trips and that kind of thing. We need to set up the way it works is we need to set up a separate account for each thing that parents can pay for. And I have not asked the question about if we had one field trip account, if it could all funnel into that and then out where it needs to go.
Even better.
Yes, it would be. That would be a really
Yeah.
good thing.
Yep. But I can make that inquiry.
Great.
To be completely
Mhm.
out of having to send checks in would be
Mhm.
a really good thing.
We're looking at 2 years of preschool checks, so
Right.
Awesome. Other questions? Okay. Ms. Vitra?
So we successfully completed all of our MCAS. Yay. I know, right? And that's just always a fun thing to finish. Our school council got together on May 17th, and we started to look at code of conduct. We needed to update ours. We reviewed an area of schools that we were recommended to look at, which we did. Very much liked the language and the wording of it. I opened up to staff to attend a voluntary staff meeting on the 24th of May, which was one of that half day before the vacation. And a handful of staff came through to sit around and have another dialogue. I had shared the document with staff, and we sat around and kind of made some tweaks and some edits, things that we are currently doing, things that they wanted to see, making it more of our own, and look to add some of that to our handbook this fall. We used classroom data and staff input, but ultimately we did make the decision, since we needed to combine a grade, to do that for preschool. So we will have one preschool, we will have two of every other grade, kindergarten through sixth grade. And all classrooms were able to complete a signature field trip, Most of them happened this last couple of weeks, and we definitely thank this PTA and family support and being able to fundraise for those, because all of the buses and admission costs, for the most part, were all taken care of with that.
Could you give some more information on the code of conduct in terms of like what will be added, what types of things are coming in, what will that look like?
It's a lot more about the kind of the philosophy of basically how we feel about what education is like. It's going to really be kind of broken down into what we're expecting parents to be able to do with their child, what we're expecting the teachers to be able to do, what we're expecting administration to be able to do. And it's really going to be a little bit more of a menu. Again, educating children is very much not a one size fits all. There are lots of different things that go into deciding about a consequence for something. And sometimes there's going to be menu options for those things, but it's really more about education and really trying to set up students for maybe possibly more tiered support if that's needed. We are bringing in a screener for students around SEL so that we have data to go on and be able to utilize to be looking at groupings of students that might need more additional support. So it's more about just this idea of how I've already kind of feel about discipline, which is it's about education. We want to make sure that all kids are feeling respected and are kind, but yet at the same time that these are opportunities to learn. And that's a lot of what this document kind of speaks to.
Does it address communication at all as well? Like just to make sure that, parents are in the loop on if their kid is having an issue in school? Is it specified that, if this happens, parents are informed? And
Yes, we will definitely make sure that there's more transparent about how frequently and how often that will happen. Yes.
Other questions?
I'm just wondering, is it a complete change from like what the policy is now, or just like updates, like for?
Yeah, the policy itself is not very long. I think what it's going to be lengthy because there's a lot to cover in it. So it is almost a complete rewrite of what we currently have, making it more comprehensive. So it's quite different than what's currently in there.
To clarify, it's not policy, it's handbook.
Yes.
And so these updates will be ready for when the committee reviews the handbook, which I would anticipate would be August, July
Yes.
or August.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm just going to say the committee will see all of the detail.
Yes.
And I just wanted to further clarify, we are voting on the handbook in August, right?
Yes.
Yes, so we'll see it.
We'll see it
Oh, yeah.
ideally in July
Perfect.
so that we can have, if there are any changes requested, we would be able to vote a final through in August.
Yes.
Perfect. That worked for,
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
okay.
You did skip the Smith Academy report. He kind of meshed
I
them,
think he spoke to both, but if you want to call, I did.
but there were a
that one
couple
for him.
questions that I had.
Please.
Were the underclass awards today?
They were this morning. Yes.
And are parents and guardians welcome at these things?
They
or-
are, yep. We reach out specifically to parents and guardians of students who are receiving awards so that they know and that they're invited. But they are, parents and guardians and community members are more than welcome at any of those events.
Okay. And even the seniors class day, the
Class Day
awards.
awards, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the banquet.
Not the banquet.
banquet's
Oh,
closed.
no, I know the banquet is sacred.
Mhm.
You also didn't mention the prom, which happened
Oh,
since our last
That happened
meeting.
since our last meeting. That's true.
That happened right before Memorial Day.
It did. It was wonderful. Prom this year was, I have never seen that high percentage of students who are at a dance dancing. It was wonderful. And they danced the entire time. They danced from when they got there, when they finished dinner to when they left. It was great.
That's great.
Wonderful.
I envy the energy.
And it was well
It
attended.
was well attended. I can't remember the final tally of folks who were there. But it was wonderful. It was a very positive evening. Really, really nice.
And I heard the middle school social was also
Yes, that was well
very nice
attended. I heard
evening.
that was a really nice evening too.
That also happened. Okay.
On the subject of awards day, like senior awards in particular, or scholarships actually, have we made any progress on consolidating or phasing out scholarships that are defunded primarily?
We haven't, no.
There's a reason though.
Yes.
I know it's complicated.
However, they don't get, so I guess I should have added in my mission moment. I also had the opportunity to attend graduation this year, which was really lovely. They did a great job. And prior years, those awards were sort of given one at a time.
Yes.
And that is not the current practice. And so now they're consolidated. So if there is a student that's receiving 5 awards, they're all named out at once. Dr. Driscoll does a beautiful job of taking that at a pretty good clip. The program itself lists out what they all are and what it's recognizing. So you have to take, they're not, if you look at them as scholarships, they're probably pretty disappointing on many fronts. Not all, some of them are still an award. If you look at them as recognition for what the program speaks to in terms of the quality that the student imbued, that feels worthwhile. Also, if we were to stop, we would have to be able to trace back the family members or the class itself that designated. Like, we can't just arbitrarily cease. We would have to be able to track back. And on many of them, we don't have a way to do that.
Mhm.
So
I fought many years to get that consolidated, that each student would get their 5
Lump
all at
sum.
once rather than coming up one at a time. Yeah. I fought a long time for that.
I will say we had a former superintendent with us who remarked to me after graduation, like, wow, that was just under an hour, in sort of shock and awe and appreciation.
It was
So,
under an hour?
Mhm.
Wow.
At
I mean-
Smith Academy.
it was
My gosh.
just under.
Well, especially if you put it all together.
I still would like to see the school song
It was there.
lyrics somewhere on the program or as an insert or a flyer handed out with the program to encourage more people to sing along.
I will tell you, all 19 of them knew the words because
Yes,
the
but
head of
the
the trust,
attendees,
the head of the trustees and I were very impressed.
the students practice it, but the families, some of them remember it, some of them don't know the words, but we can add that and get
Mhm.
people to sing.
Perhaps. Maybe they would say. So,
All right, that was all I had on the,
other questions? Any questions related to the district improvement plan? We have a little work to do there. We'll probably spend some time in the summer on that. School finance subcommittee report. Mr. Sullivan.
Hi. Okay. I have a brief report today, which is a nice change. So we met last week just to kind of get caught up on what's left for the current year, just discussing remaining balances in local and school choice budgets, and any anticipated spending between then and the end of the year. In particular, payouts for sick and vacation time for employees who are leaving for retirements or otherwise, and any purchases that Dr. Driscoll had kind of had on hold to make sure that we had the funds to cover them at the end of the year. So I just highlighted a couple in the report, which Dr. Driscoll already spoke to: the battery backup for the Smith Academy phones, and the gym doors at the elementary school. We briefly touched on the next fiscal year. As Ms. Petra mentioned, we discussed the plan for going from, we were going to have a combined kindergarten preschool. We're no longer doing that. So we're having one preschool, 2 kindergartens, and 2 of everything else at the elementary school. Dr. Driscoll mentioned there may be a need to have 1 additional ESP or paraprofessional at Smith Academy. And we discussed any additional out-of-district tuition payments we might need for next year, possibly 2 or 3 of those. And then the more exciting part of my report is that I had a capital planning meeting last week. The town had allocated a remaining ARPA funds, which was $241,000, to cover additional cost overruns on the West Street water sewer project. So I think this would have been the second time they've had to come up with additional funds for that project because it's just becoming more complicated than they anticipated. Senator Comerford was able to get us an additional $300,000 grant, which covered those costs. So the ARPA funds came back to the town. to find something to do with, and we have to spend them by the end of the calendar year. So various departments got different amounts. The fire department had a couple of projects authorized. The Council on Aging is hopefully going to be getting a new floor. And then the schools, we discussed funding $73,000 for our HVAC upgrades at Smith Academy and $21,000 for the new elementary school freezer unit, which is up on top of the building, I believe. But just a reminder, we need to make sure this gets done by the end of the year. And if it can't be done, we need to tell the town very quickly so we can find another thing to do. But thank you to Senator Joe for making this happen.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's big.
It's huge. So, I mean, we've had a capital planning list that Adam and I keep like, yep, it's going in. So it's exciting to see something come off capital planning.
Yeah, basically the last 2 years, no department has had anything funded through capital planning. So it's nice to check off a couple things.
Yeah, that's great.
The other piece of tonight is about budget transfers. And school finance has taken a slightly different approach and I'm setting this up because you won't brag on yourself. Dr. Driscoll and Riley have done an immense job going through and completely rebuilding the budget so that everybody knows what's there. And it's been a lot of work. It's been really worthwhile, and now there's a lot more clarity and transparency, and that let us do, I think, a better job budgeting for FY25. We always knew that we would have to do a lot of shuffling at some point so that every line balances out at the end. And we kind of knew all the costs that were coming in. And so Connor's done an amazing job making sure that everything got encumbered and we knew what was coming and we knew what we needed to hold. And then we could start to shuffle. So tonight's shuffling, moving from one line item to another to cover end of the year costs, is one of the larger transfers total. You have the transfer totals in your packet. It's $115,108.58. I did a little, we had reviewed all of this in school finance previously to sort of understand what was moving, what was shifting, where we would see the end of the year as a result. There are a few of the from lines that were more significant than others, and they're things that you would anticipate. So we're moving just shy of $43,000 out of the Smith Academy principal line item. That's the savings we found when we merged the superintendent principal role mid-year. And so we're able to shift those dollars to cover places where we were under. We had no ASL this year. And so that was about $10,000 of savings because that program didn't have student interest. We finally have seen some actual savings coming in from the solar panels at Smith Academy. Woohoo! So we had $16,000 extra that we don't think we're going to need in secondary electricity. And there was about a little shy of $9,000 left over in this secondary principal's office contracted services, which is sort of a bucket for things like the printer and copier, and which Mr. Wood renegotiated that contract, and so we found some savings there. So that's why we had that's the money that's getting shifted out to all of the many places. The big highlights there where costs were beyond forecast were elementary sped transportation, over anticipated by $11,536. Secondary sped transportation over by almost $14,000. Contractual services combined between both buildings, $16,751. So those are the big culprits and some of those things are harder to budget for, right? You don't always know what you're going to need. So,
And the repair replace.
the repair replace is about the elementary doors. So that's taking care of that.
I don't know if that was a roof.
No, that is not the roof. That is a door. Those are the doors, which are.
The roof costs came largely into contractual services too.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give you a little bit more background on those. Are there other questions about the budget transfers?
Many thanks.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year we won't have to do as much of one because our budget is built off of actual spending from now on.
Right.
So as we go forward each year, hopefully our budget lines get more accurate.
And fewer transfers, and there'll always be some, right?
Mm.
Because you can't completely predict
Sure.
everything.
Like
But
next year
we're
we have that large account made for covering long-term leaves.
Yes,
Hopefully there's something left in that at the end of the year.
that would be lovely. And this will, we're going to finish the end of the year in the black
Yay.
by all that we know, and there will likely be a little surplus left over in the school choice budget, which was not necessarily anticipated, but we may get there. So
Would you like a motion? I make a motion to approve the budget transfers totaling $115,108.58 as presented.
I second that.
okay, so Kathy Engelhardt has made a motion, Becca Bench has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Great, that passes 5-0. Audio notes are going to be great. So with that, we turn to policy subcommittee report and a second reading for the cell phone policy.
Okay, so the policy subcommittee met on May 20th, and we discussed the potential policy JID, which is drafted as student cell phones and portable electronic devices. During that meeting, we did review committee feedback from the first reading. We heard from some Smith Academy Middle School students regarding their thoughts on the potential policy. And we continued reviewing comparable policies from other districts. So the committee has in the packet the edits that we have made to potential policy JID. And our goal is that today serves as a second reading for this policy. We're not asking for a vote, but we are asking for feedback, any feedback. So as this was a new policy that we're writing, the edits reflected in your packet are changes since the first reading. So we would love to hear from the committee. I can talk through some of the changes if you'd like, but there are not many. A lot of it was style, and we did clarify that cell phones would be allowed on field trips, which was one of the concerns brought forward from the students.
Is that still with the permission?
Yes, with the permission of the coach, instructor, or program director.
So I don't need to be the first person to speak, but that was
No.
the one spot that caught my eye. And it might be fixed with something as simple as leading with the permission language. so that-
Flipping that instead of
yeah.
having it at the end of the sentence. Sure. I will make a note.
So this is a completely new policy. There wasn't one before.
Correct.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Mostly cell phones have been addressed through the handbooks, not through district-wide policy. So this is seeking to have a policy that the entire district would follow. And then some of what we talked about in our committee meeting was that some of the more nitty-gritty implementation items could go forward in handbooks as needed.
So if it was going to be in a pouch or it was going to be in a backpack,
Exactly.
or where
So
the
we-
expectation was that if putting it away
Yes.
would be in a handbook.
Yes, and so we did discuss that a little bit. I know Dr. Driscoll was sort of looking at many different options for how things could be operationalized, and we felt that on the district level, it was best to set the overall standard, and then on the handbook level, we could be more specific, like about pouches.
Right.
And was there research to see what's done around
Yes.
in the state?
Yeah, so we've been looking at a lot of other comparable policies from other districts, so many. And it feels like there's more every day. So kind of at every meeting, we're reviewing, like Mohawk is rolling out a policy again, and I don't remember the other districts we looked
Some
at,
are a
but
lot
quite a few.
more strict
Yeah.
than what we're proposing. I would say that we're kind of in the middle
Mhm.
of a lot of the policies that we looked at.
Ours requires participation of the faculty, right, to make it work. It doesn't really work without the staff being on board.
That's correct. And I would say that the most common feedback that I heard from other area superintendents and principals was to that effect. And frankly, what we see, like any policy change you make or requirement that you have around cell phones, it takes faculty to, it takes people to make it happen. That being said, there are some things you could do that make it easier for staff to do that. You know, if there is a common expectation of where the phones are, then it's, you know, you don't have the expectation where some staff might say, well, you know, they might take it out to do research, or they, you know, I can ask them to use it on this. So that, you know, if there's a common expectation that those cell phones are in a different spot, either locked in a place or in those pouches or somewhere else, that common expectation anywhere in the school at all times makes it easier for a staff member to say, you are not supposed to have that.
As in, like, they would give it to somebody, or
It could be that. A lot of schools that I spoke with have had a lot of success with things called they're called yonder pouches, and basically it's kind of like the reverse of if when you go shopping, there's that tag that they have to unclip when you know from your article of clothing, where there's a pouch that the students put the phone in, and it magnetically seals as they come into the building, and they can't unseal it until the end of the day. So they, you know, they can physically have their phone on them in their backpack, in their pocket, but there's no way that they can use it because it's locked into that pouch.
yeah, because my concern is it is their personal property.
Mhm.
We should not be taking that, and then if you do, that opens you up to a lot of issues of where are these cell phones if something goes missing. I don't see, unless you are policing it, I don't see how that could be a positive interaction with these students.
So the policy is saying that after the warnings, it can get confiscated.
Right. We're not planning on confiscating devices
No.
routinely.
If it's a repeat offender, it can get confiscated. It would be held in the office,
Mhm.
and it says only picked up by the student or the student's guardian.
Right.
And
Which
just
is what we currently
for the
do.
school day.
Okay, that's good
Okay.
to clarify. So are both schools currently doing that? To
Yes,
some
I
degree,
don't know
if
you
as
have
needed.
the same need at the elementary school, but yes, when we have students that are, you know, refusing to put their phone away or frequently in violation of our current policy, the phones come to the office. Students come in at the end of the day to pick them up. If it happens several times, then the parents have to come in to pick the phones up. And they're able to come in that day. Oftentimes, we'll have parents that say, "No, I'll get it at the end of the week," and they can, you know,
There
they
you
can
go.
go the week without.
Okay.
Our students typically just leave them in their backpacks or lockers, but then, of course, if they happen to get permission to leave the room to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, there's nothing from stopping them from going to check their locker to see somebody's
Mhm.
texted them. But for the most part, as far as it being a day-to-day thing in the classrooms, it's not been an issue or problem. My only thing that I've already had to deal with once, and there isn't anything that's saying anything about buses. I'm a little concerned about the being able to use cell phones before and after school hours outside or inside the school building. I've had complaints from parents already of other students who have been showing videos or YouTube things that are scaring other kids because the things that they might like to watch, they're showing their friends. So I'm a little concerned. I don't know how to address the fact that the bus is still part of a school day. There's still consequences if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing on the bus. So I don't know if that's something I need to take up with the bus company themselves, or if it's just going to be, this is how the policy is going to be in effect until the
Yeah.
kids are home and off the
So
bus.
in our meeting, and Kathy and Dr. Driscoll can correct me, but we did discuss the bus. And we were unsure how we could enforce rules around cell phones on the bus. Because the bus driver is
Well,
driving.
Correct.
how does discipline now get carried out? Like with anything that happens on the bus driver is in charge of monitoring that. What does
And
that look like
reports to
now?
you.
Yep, there are incident reports. So if they fill something out, the first offense is a meeting with me. The second offense is I call the family. The third offense is the parent comes in. There's a loss of privilege. The student is taken off the bus for an extended period of time. And then that just elongates the more infractions that occur. So if there was a student who was mishandling a device and kids were reporting it, and I had to do an investigation and I found out that to be true, then we could still write up that as a bus incident. But it has been a thing already in which a
Right.
parent has called concerned, not because the driver gave me that information, but because the parent
Right.
themselves is saying, my child is saying that they're scared because they didn't like watching this video that this other student was watching. So that's still going to potentially be a problem.
Do you feel that the policy needs to have anything more specific to the elementary school students versus a district-wide policy? Do you think that there needs to be called out anything different in the policy, or is it enough for you to put something in the handbook for the elementary school for anything?
That's a good question.
Not that
I just wanna-
I'm not like asking
Here's
that
the
we
thing,
should do it, but
right.
I just don't know what would
But
help
if-
you the most.
But if she's calling out something that is expressly counter to the policy, that is a problem.
I don't think we can
So
fix that
I
with the
don't,
handbook.
I don't think we fix that. So
Right.
if the handbook is, we're not having cell phones on the bus for elementary schoolers.
Right.
You can't then say students are permitted to use it before and after school hours inside the school. Like that feels in conflict.
Which is why I'm thinking, do we need to put something in there that says,
Because
Right.
we're okay with
Yeah,
high
and you know
schoolers
what?
on the bus with cell phone?
I don't know. I mean, they're older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are
Totally.
kids, like I said, it's, something of interests of watching some scary video clip
Yeah.
from something is.
And
just
you know what?
Putting that out there is trying to mitigate the idea that this is going to continue to be something that happens and occurs.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And I am looking at the current HES handbook, and it does specifically state in the handbook currently that cell phones should just be in your backpack, including on the bus. So I don't know what the committee thinks about the district policy, if we should include something specific to the bus on that, because I'm with Christy that we should not write a policy that then directly conflicts with the
Right.
handbook. It's a very bad plan. So,
however many years ago, there was the whole push of the wait until 8
right.
campaign for cell phones for kids. We have made it very clear in this policy that contact between student and home and the student should go through the school office in either building. Students at Smith Academy have more reason and opportunity to need a phone after school if they have practice or whatever that they need to contact for a ride. I don't see that being a necessity for elementary students. I don't know, though, if
We're
we,
going to have a hard time if there's just like you are not allowed to have it on your person. Like it just, I mean, we do have other things that we say you can't bring that to school, but that would be a shift.
it would. I don't know that in
It would
all our
still-
research, we
it would
looked
still
at
be
anything
distinguishing
specific
between
to elementary
grades.
schools.
Yeah, we've been looking at district policy.
Right, but nothing that called out elementaries.
Right. I mean, yeah, I hear that. I mean, any
You can
comments?
also amend this by saying you can just remove students are permitted to use cell phones before and after school.
Yeah,
Like the handbooks deal
I
with
was just
that.
thinking that why do we have that line in there anyways? Inside or outside the building. I mean, it's obvious that they can use it when they're at home or in their car.
Right, but if they're still on school property, I think we just wanted to clarify, you know what I mean, that, you know, if you're outside for PE, obviously you're not using it, but you're outside and the school
Yeah.
day is done,
So
then it doesn't matter. You know, I think that's just all we were seeking,
you could seek
right?
other limitation options. If you aren't limiting it by location, you could also look at time.
Mhm.
And include it from the start of the first bus round to the end of the bus drop. Like
From 7, what time is the first
Yeah,
bus?
I don't,
To
are cell phones an issue on the bus for Smith Academy?
We have not had any office referrals specifically because of cell phones on the bus this year.
Okay.
You also don't have a lot of riders on your
Don't
bus.
have a lot of
Yeah,
riders.
riders on the bus,
Right,
that's true.
right, exactly. So,
there's a big difference in ages in elementary school, like the 6th grader being with a kindergartner and or a 1st grader on the bus. And I mean, short of having monitors on buses, which some places have, but we don't have the numbers for that, I don't think.
We used to a long time ago.
Yeah, you would like usually there is a monitor on the bus and they take care of that, like part of making sure these things don't happen. Or
I mean, would it just be as simple as saying elementary school students are not like allowed to, cannot use their cell phones on the bus? They have to
Well-
stay in their backpacks on the bus? Like,
When is it then okay for an elementary student to use their phone?
I'm just saying I can
they brought a
also
phone.
yeah, like we could leave it for, you know, like we have walkers, students who walk home, they might have a phone with them. You know what I mean?
So once you enter so I guess I don't have a big issue having something in a district policy that denotes age grade levels or buildings. I think the before and after, if you're gathering in the cafeteria before class starts at the elementary school, I imagine we would not want cell phones out then.
We want kids to be able to eat their breakfast if they're actually.
Yeah.
So
So
that's going to be a new thing next year.
Yeah. So, well, why don't we think about how to be a little bit more clear on that second to last paragraph?
maybe just to take a quick check, is there anyone who wants to speak to doing something dramatically different than what's already outlined here? Are we looking to have anything?
Because I think we can address the bus and policy can wordsmith things.
Right, but I'm just making sure that we're all,
Yeah.
if there's a completely different opinion or guideline,
Mhm.
speak up. This is the time.
I guess my question is, how big of a problem is this?
It's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's become more significant in recent years, I would say. Even since I started at Smith Academy, I've seen a shift among staff who had thought, you know, kids are going to have their cell phones when they go to college, when they go wherever. They're going to need to learn how to manage themselves and how to manage their time and the distraction that it can provide. I've seen a shift from that kind of mentality towards, you know, yes, that's the case, and this is a measure that we can help. You know, we can help them
Mhm.
manage because they're struggling to manage.
So there's an issue with, like, this cannot be solved through classroom management.
I would say no. It's that is That's what the current policy is, or the current
Mhm.
practice is. And when that's the case, it it builds inconsistency into the system, and that inconsistency is sort of part of the issue.
Another piece was equity.
Yeah.
If in classroom X, the teacher was allowing the kids, well, take out your phones and Google that or look that up. And if not everybody has a phone, that's an equity issue. We've now moved that all students have a Chromebook available to them, so they do have access. They don't need to use the phone for that
Right.
purpose.
But we can block Snapchat, and we can block Instagram. We can
On the Chromebooks,
do
yeah.
those in the Chromebook.
So every student at all times has
Has access to a computer.
but not access, but they have it on them.
They should. If they haven't brought it to school, then they would need to get one from the library.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a Chromebook that they take home.
Yep.
Okay.
But not every student has a phone.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My only concern for this is everybody has a cell phone. And is it once we have this policy, is it still going to be, are all teachers going to be consistent? Is it going to be one?
This is going to make them.
I think
Is
that's
it going to
part
be
of
the
our
same
goal.
thing? Like, is it consistent on a case by case basis?
So that's the question for the committee to ask administration.
Yeah.
How do you
We have-
enforce this such that there is consistent adoption? Because
Right.
we would never want to put policies in that then the
Right.
staff arbitrarily decide whether they're going to follow or not.
Yeah. So I think part of the way that you do that is through the right tool. And I know I keep coming back to the pouches idea, but if the system is when students come into school, they put their phone in the pouch, they lock the pouch. The expectation throughout the day, whatever class they're in, whether they're in going to the bathroom, whether they're in lunch, whether they're in the library, whether they're wherever, is that the phone is in the pouch, and they physically can't get it out of the pouch once it's in there until the end of the day when they unlock it and they can take it out. So it makes that it makes it so that it's kind of a one-time enforcement. And if they don't do that and they're found in a class or in the hall, then that's the next level of consequence. But it would make it so that students going from one class to the other would already have taken that step to have it locked in a way so that they wouldn't have the opportunity to take it out in the next class.
And that takes the stress away from the teachers having
I think it does. Yep.
consistently having to ask students. And is this something that is a one-time cost?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's a one-time cost, and if we were to go that direction, the cost could be covered. It could be grant covered.
What's the lifespan on the pouches?
Don't know off the top of my head, but that's a question I can certainly ask.
It's a one-time cost, except
Right. Well, they do recommend you get extra. So we in the grant, if we were to do it, we would have enough to get more than double the amount that we would need. And so if the elementary school wanted to, in getting students ready for the middle high school, wanted to adopt that in some of the upper grades, they could do that as well.
Talk to me about what happens with smartwatches.
Yeah, we just went with personal electronic devices.
Does
We did.
that count as a personal electronic device?
We
You had made some comments
Yeah.
about that it was
Did
more
discuss.
obvious and not easy to hide if they're, doing this rather than if they're down here on their lap with something.
I guess I'm just clarifying, does it count? Is the intent that it should count as part of this policy?
like, can they have their Apple Watches on them? Because
totally.
you can still get, but as part of the policy,
Nope.
because you're still going to get your texts and your calls. And
I think there are fewer things you can do with a watch that are.
They're just not being.
it's still a
imagined.
distraction, though.
It is. Yeah.
It is still a distraction.
Some people use them for health issues as well, like students with diabetes.
And we
Um,
have that clause in here for medical reasons
Yeah.
that, or other reasons that administration would approve on a case-by-case basis.
Yep. To be honest, we did discuss smartwatches and struggled
Mm.
with where to land on that. So this is a second reading. If anyone has opinions. We did already discuss, again, like on a school level with Dr. Driscoll, like, when students are taking tests, like they have, you can't have a smartwatch and things like that. But that was like a handbook type thing when we discussed in subcommittee. Any thoughts?
I feel like just like, I think they need to be treated just the same as the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they put their phone on airplane mode, then that solves that.
Yeah,
It's
because
not
they can't
connected.
talk to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also have it as a kind of a progressive thing. If the
Mhm.
phones are away and we have kids that are on their
If
watches,
it becomes
we
a
say, "Hey,
problem, then we can,
Then we
here's a
come
second pouch." Sure.
Right.
clarify it.
right.
We
did-
amend the policy.
We did also
We
discuss
talked about
that.
that this is kind of
Like,
fluid.
this doesn't have to be the forever policy, but
Right.
also we were trying to write it so that it would set a good district-wide standard, but would be flexible enough to make edits in a handbook or in the future or,
As we live and learn it.
right.
So the intent of portable electronic devices includes watches. Or intentionally
do you
vague,
think?
so maybe it doesn't.
I would say
I
yes.
would say it does.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I would think
I just
so.
have
I'm
to
not gonna
say,
have a leg if I don't.
vague policy isn't good policy.
Yeah.
So let's, if
you
we're
put
gonna
it-
count it, let's count it. If we're not, let's not. But like maybe it does.
Well, there are a
doesn't-
lot of portable electronic devices. We don't call out other personal devices.
We give them one.
Right, right. A
Right.
How about if
Chromebook.
somebody brings an
Right.
iPad?
Exactly. Yeah, no, we really did talk about these things. So if the committee wants to start then listing out what they would all be, then we can, or we can just say now, like any personal electronic device would include, we can write it
Can we
however.
do in parentheses, i.e.
Yeah, we
smartwatch,
So I guess
iPad?
I
We
wouldn't want
can.
to be exhaustive because we'll miss
that's
something.
that's what I mean.
But if there's
like-
something that is so obviously going to cause the question and be potentially misread,
Mhm.
that might need to
Right.
call out.
And I mean, this is precisely the reason why smartwatches was highlighted in yellow during the first
Yes.
reading. So that, because we, at the subcommittee level, did not have a firm conclusion. So in terms of like a temperature check for the third reading, how does the committee feel? Would you like us to include smartwatches specifically in the district-wide policy? Would you like it to be further delineated in the handbooks?
Let me ask you guys this. Is it better to go a little stricter,
Mhm.
specify smartwatches, specify the bus for elementary, and then if it's going really well, ease it back? Or is it better to give that and then if it's a problem that they're on their watches and a problem that they're on the bus with phones, then move it up? Where would you see that?
My preference would be, and I'm coming at this because right now the issue is phones. There's nothing saying that it won't change to watches.
Move.
But
Migrate
the
quickly.
capabilities on a watch are a lot different than a phone. I mean, it's really small. And I know their eyesight's very good, but
You can do
but-
speech to text, just FYI.
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but
But the
are you scrolling
mean,
Instagram? Maybe,
I would say that it should count as a portable electronic device, but I don't know that the enforcement delineated in the handbook needs to be the same as for a phone.
You might be able to turn a blind eye to that if it's,
Not a blind eye, but if it's not causing a distraction. I mean, if I can see, I mean, if you can tell when someone, I mean, if someone's got their arm cocked so they can see it, or I just feel like I feel like I'm not sure. I think
So
I'd be curious to see what the transition's like first.
So you can have it out and use it as a watch, period.
Because it's, I mean, part of the issue is just like the way it's changing their behavior, and it's a distraction. As we've been having this conversation, I've had 4 buzzes on my wrist that the baby monitor is
Well, I
going
mean,
off.
that's yeah.
So, you know, any distraction, you know, they may not have access to Instagram, but they know somebody just commented on something.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a good point.
That's the pull.
Yeah, you get
And that,
notifications.
so even, I mean, that gets you even more kind of anxious about what's going on, that you can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see good coming from having them if we're trying to change
Yeah.
this behavior.
I agree.
I agree.
Mhm. So we want to be specific about it then? What would you like to see in the third reading?
I don't know that you need to put something in. If you did, I would say it'd be, you know, including but not limited to smartwatches.
I think the bigger interest is making sure that we're all clear on what it means
Mhm.
and that the enforcement will be consistent
Mhm.
on what it means. And so,
That's key, is the enforcement.
so if smartwatches, I mean, I think as soon as the phones go, smartwatches will become more of a problem. I don't think it's
I do too.
Although not everybody has the smartwatch.
not yet. Not
And
till you
You'd
take
be
their phones
surprised
off.
how
Yeah.
many elementary students do.
Yeah. I mean, I was debating the other day whether to give my kid one because I would like to track where they are. But I'm just wondering if we're taking away one anxiety and replacing it with another, how are these kids going to be? Like, we're taking their phones, we're going to take their watches. They have no idea what time it is, as in, like,
There's clocks in every
there's
room.
clock.
They're
Well,
gonna have to
okay,
learn
there's
to
a
read the
clock
clocks in every
in a room. I don't know. I would be anxious, to be honest.
I think like I mean, it's become basically an addiction for all of us. And I think like anything, it's going to be, it's
Mhm.
going to be crummy for a bit. And then the idea, and I think the studies are starting to show that once they break it,
Mhm.
it starts to get better.
And the students themselves, from the stuff I've read, once it's broken, they're actually appreciative to be
Mhm.
off. There's just skills that are really hard for them to get while they're addicted to that device while they're at school. I mean, they won't even, they like so the part that I heard from the middle schoolers that came to visit was like, if I don't have my phone, I might actually have to go to the other table to talk to
Yes.
that person.
That's what they
And
said
I
to us.
just,
That did
like,
come up.
I kind of melted a little
I have
bit. It
to
was like,
walk across the room
oh,
to
They-
talk to my
a
friend.
You had
forbid.
done a no phone Friday
Yep.
thing.
And actually, the students loved it.
They loved it.
They were
but
like, we love no phone Fridays.
But then they also said that the drawback was, well, if they wanted to talk to their friend over there at the next table, they can't just text them. They have to actually get up and walk over to the next table. And then what if there isn't a seat there? What are they going to do? And it just,
It was very sweet.
it was, I don't know, very,
so good things to practice.
yeah. That
Also,
interaction is good.
just because their way of communicating is different doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just trying to be
It's okay.
to represent the other
Well,
side.
Adam's
Um,
glad that you're the one wearing the black hat for a night. He's all good.
I play the bad guy in finance. It's not fun.
Yeah, I definitely understand where this policy is coming from. I'm just concerned, and I like the idea of the pouch. I'm just concerned if we start to restrict a device that they are using, that they will be using, that we're all using. It's what are we doing to teach them how to use this technology versus just let's take it away? Are we giving them some tech skills? Are they learning about the internet? Are they learning about the information they're getting it from? I'm all for let's policy the heck out of this, but also I would like to see some kind of steps to really teaching our students how to use these devices because they're not going anywhere.
And it's 6 hours a day. If when they go out, well, I know in aftercare, Ms. Lanaville has mentioned that the students that work for her there, the older students, are mostly on their phones and not engaged with the younger kids that they're supposed to be supervising. And it's frustrating for her that these students just are so addicted to the phones.
And I
And
think
if we can teach them to be without it for certain periods of time, it won't be as difficult to break from it in other situations where they can't have it.
I think you hit the nail on the head there because you're right. They're not going anywhere. But as adults, there are places where we go where the expectation is that you
Mhm.
can't have your phone. It's not appropriate to have your phone. And so to build the skill of that separation, I think is good. So when they do go to a job and the expectation is set that you're not on your phone while you're at work, that's not a shock to them either. And to your question about teaching the research skills and making sure the information is valid information, that is incorporated into the curriculum. Students, as they do research and as they go online with their teachers, and they cover that, as well as through the computer science classes that they take as well. But it's mostly, the coding stuff that they do is primarily based on computers. They're not doing it on their phones.
Right.
Although they can design apps for phones on the computer.
But we had third graders this year learning about online safety
Mhm.
and,
Yeah, that's something you have to start.
what
Very
can
young.
you learn from somebody's profile picture? What can you assume? And starting them young, learning these things about the internet and all the pitfalls that come with it.
Mhm.
I think we need to continue doing more of that.
So I think you guys have a lot of feedback. You have a little more work to do. I would really like to see a third reading come in July.
Yep.
Because that would give us an opportunity to hit
Already
Books.
planning on it.
excellent.
Sounds great.
So that was one of the reasons we need to make sure that all the policy stuff is moving. So I'm going to move on to the HES solar project.
Mhm.
You want to speak to that?
So at the town meeting, the town voted to approve. I'm trying to remember this correctly. They approved giving the school committee and the select board the authority to lease the Hatfield roof to a solar energy to do a power purchase agreement, a lease.
But they put an amendment in.
They did put an amendment in that
Worded.
it would be that it would make sure that the warranty covered the roof as well as the solar panels. And if the solar panels caused an issue with the roof, the solar company couldn't just say, "Well, it's the roof; it's not the solar panels." It's on you.
So my understanding is we need to have a new motion from the committee
Yep.
that picks up that amendment from the town meeting.
Yes, and so basically the motion would need to authorize the select board to lease the roof of Smith Academy, from what I understand.
have
Or sorry,
printed
of
out
Hatfield
here.
Elementary School.
Yes, this was one where I thought we might want to have it scripted ahead of time.
Yes.
So I think everyone has access to that, should you have an interest in making said motion. This doesn't necessarily guarantee that we get this. It doesn't mean that we're approving all the contracts that would go with
Nope.
it, because there's still a lot of other stuff that we will see. But this at least moves us forward to where we can start to get to those conversations.
Dr. Driscoll, did you speak with the company that you're working with on this? Are they okay with the language that was added at town meeting?
They have the language. They have not said anything to the contrary that they're not okay with it.
They were anxious for us to reapprove this and to get to the select board.
Go ahead, Adam.
I would like to make a motion to approve this.
You have it up?
I do. Do I need to read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine.
The Hatfield School Committee authorizes the Hatfield Select Board to lease all or a portion of the roof at Hatfield Elementary School located at 33 Main Street for a term of years upon such terms and conditions, including warranties on roof and solar systems, as are acceptable to the Select Board, to a solar energy provider for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, and operating a solar facility on the property, and to enter into a power purchase agreement with the solar energy provider. The Hatfield School Committee also authorizes the Select Board to grant an easement to Eversource to install, maintain, operate, repair, reinstall, or replace any utilities required for interconnection to the solar facility project.
Second.
Okay, so Adam has moved and Kathy has seconded. All in favor of the solar next step? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any negative? Nope. That's approved. Next up is a conversation about school choice enrollment. So you've got a handout there. In updating the form with the newest numbers from Riley and this is those who had accepted, correct?
Yes.
So we're pursuant to our new policy and getting families to come in and say, yes,
Yes.
we are in fact coming, which is such a really smart way to do this. Updating back from just over a month, not even a whole month ago, we're up 10 yeses.
Oh, fantastic.
So there are 8 yeses in kindergarten with 10 approved openings. And I added this back to the agenda for one question. When we set the approved slots, there was an unknown about the number of kindergarten classes and preschool classes. With the knowledge, we now have 2 kindergarten classes. And as of today, a known number of students at 22 with a max at the moment, unless we have local move-in, numbers go up. Right now, we're looking at 24 for 2 classrooms when this recommended classroom size is 15. So I just wanted to bring this back to the committee. We played this safer before because we weren't sure we weren't going to also have preschoolers in one of those rooms. And I just want to ask the question if we want to stick to 10 approved slots or we want to open that up to more or not. Because if we got an extra 3 kids, we would have 1 preschooler would probably move over. I think we have room for what, 2 or 3 more preschoolers, depending on the number of days they have preschool.
So we would add 2 more slots or 3?
To the kindergarten number.
Just look,
kindergarten?
I'm really just looking at the kindergarten numbers. There's no new data. There's no new news about anything other than kindergarten.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm really, and the committee can choose to leave it as is. But given there was new news, and this is the one grade where we are more likely to see a greater interest because it's the start of their school careers, I just wanted to come back and ask the question. And by all means, if you guys have strong feelings about keeping it or raising it, please share.
I mean, given that we know that we have, a max right now of 20, possibly 24, that's 12 in each class. I'd say that there's room for more students in those classes.
I agree.
What is the end date for our taking school choice applications? Are we still unrolling?
So there's a draft policy that would evolve that, and I think that's probably coming back next month.
Okay. So at the moment, we're still taking rolling applications?
At the moment we are, but we're going to look at that again, which would, I think the expectation is that would evolve. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay. And even how it's currently written, there wouldn't be more than the open number of slots.
Yeah.
Can I add something else to the committee's, not to to vote on tonight, but just for thinking, because this has come up now twice since we voted on the school choice slots, where we have had potentially students who are currently in the class, whose families may have moved out of town. So say they're in second grade, and say there's 2 slots open for school. This is not the case here, but
Yeah.
let's say there's 2 slots open in second grade. Those slots are filled from school choice applicants, but we've only had 2 applicants, we'll say. And then a family moves out and say that they have a second grader. They are not guaranteed a slot, even if they apply for school choice, because we've already accepted the 2 that were approved.
We've
Even
lost
even though it wouldn't change the number of kids in the class, they are not currently guaranteed a spot because there's only 2 spots that have been approved. So it may be worth thinking in future votes about when a number is approved, that it's a up to a cap in the class rather than a set number of 3 or 4 or 5, because that would allow us to get to to get to that number without necessarily having to come back and say, well, we'd like to vote for another one because we had another person come and someone moved out. And
So if we opened up 2 slots to get us to 24,
Mhm.
but we lose a couple of kids, we could put in language that,
allows you to get up to that 24.
right, that we can get slots open.
Right.
which would work both ways, because that also would, if you said, we're going to cap this grouping at 36,
Yep.
pick a number, and you had 3 kids move into town, you would be lowering your number of open choice seats
Because of the
as
movement.
that happened. So
Yeah.
that ebb and flow would change. So this is probably something we need to look at soon.
Mm.
The reason for addressing it tonight is really just specific based on what we learned a year ago when we didn't have choice seats able to confirm. We lost families in this window. So if we are going to adjust kindergarten, I would, even if that policy might shift, we're in the window right now where people are coming to see the school, and
Mhm.
and we could take 2 more and then we would be putting people on a wait list. So.
Curious on Dr. Driscoll's point that he made. Does DESI have any specific language? Like, does DESI require a specific number, or do they allow us to?
I will have to run it by legal, because DESI requires a vote on school choice to approve it. I believe they require a vote on slots that are open, but I don't know that if that necessarily needs to be a number of slots.
Yeah,
I think it could be
Could be an up
slots
to or
up to a certain, up to make the class this certain number.
yeah,
We'll reach out.
that would be great.
Yep.
Because I know we have looked at the statute in our subcommittee meetings before,
Yep.
but we are not lawyers.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
if we can have legal, just double check it.
Regarding the kindergarten amount, which is where we started this,
Mhm.
I would support opening up more slots to the size limitation there. What is that, 6?
Yep.
Because that would then ease things if anybody came through to the elementary school and was interested in that. They're not even going to get a hesitation of, oh, well, we have to see if the committee will vote in another spot.
Right
If
now,
they're
it can possibly
there.
delay it by a month.
Right. I mean, at first I thought, well, if it happens, it can come back to us and we'll approve it. But
We'll
let's
lose
just,
them.
we'll lose them
We'll
in
lose
this,
them.
in that
Yeah.
window.
Yep.
So if we have the room, if we have the approved recommended size, and there's still room to fill up to that recommended size, I say we open that slot for the kindergarten. My thoughts. I know Adam has
I
a different
agree.
thought.
So my partner and I on finance I think we're both torn. Is that fair?
Sure. Yes.
We might, in the tearing, fall out slightly different spaces, but yet both torn. Because this would be very significant number of choice students in the moment.
Mhm.
And while they are significant enough, they would cover the cost of that classroom because there's enough of them that they would pay for staff. We have been pretty conscientious that we're not adding
Right.
to the point that we're adding capacity.
Mhm.
So that's part of the issue. The other side of it is if we don't add them in kindergarten, they're going to be on the bubble all the way through. So if they aren't a sizable number, if there's only 11 or 12 and they lose somebody in the 3rd grade and they lose somebody in the 4th grade, like by the time they move up, it's going to be very challenging to argue having 2 classrooms. And then we have this sort of this issue that goes all the way through with them where we have to shuffle staff.
So can you just clarify the current expected, if we don't vote for additional slots,
If we don't have any additional slots, if we keep it at 10,
then the
given the
current
number
grade
that we
total-
have of locals currently known, we would be up at 24 kindergartners. Is where we
without,
would,
If all
without,
those 10 spots filled.
if all those 10, assuming the 10 fill, and we've had 8 confirmed yeses already,
Right.
and that is growing. That, like, the trend has been that that's
totally.
moving up.
And that is, okay, so how, just to, I know we've talked about this, but how confident are we on that kindergarten count? Because
There-
somebody could show up on the first day of school.
Absolutely. So
So for residents, how confident do we feel?
We have 15 town residents currently that we're expecting in kindergarten next year.
Okay. And we've reached out to all the people
Yep.
and we don't think, because I know we commonly do have like a late ad
right, and
for
we've
kindergarten. And we've heard
seen-
back from all
we've seen some chatter in social media
Yep.
about families that
working.
were confused and maybe hadn't spoken up and we're still waiting. So
Right.
I think that's partly what you're,
Partly, yeah.
Is the kindergarten registration form on the website like live? Parent families can use that and fill out, and somebody will get that form.
I believe so,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I mean, if we shared it on the Hatfield parents page, like, hey, if anyone hasn't heard from the school, or here's the thing, and
Right.
you'll
Yeah,
get a follow up from
absolutely.
Michelle or
Right.
whomever.
Yep.
Anybody who filled the census out, if they filled the census out
Right.
and we understand them to have a kindergarten aged child, we were reaching out to them.
Yeah, you
multiple
sent the
times.
letters and stuff like that. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
make sure
The
that, like, how
census-
clear are we?
the census number of available kindergartners
Right.
was surprisingly high relative to the,
Yeah, it was
15.
27 in the email you sent to us.
Yeah.
So it makes us wonder where's the other 12.
Where are they going?
That'd be a large proportion going elsewhere
Or
if that
like,
number's accurate.
that would be a shocking number of kids not to have. I mean, given what we
Right.
know for every grade across the board, that would just be very anomalous if there were really 27 out there.
You don't think it's a real number?
We'd heard a few people had moved.
Ah.
And yes, there are some other people who just decided they wanted to, where their work was, it was just easier to put their child someplace closer to where they were working.
Yeah.
So there was that as well, but
And you don't have to go to kindergarten.
Right,
The
that's the
state
other
doesn't
piece. Right.
require you to go to
Right.
kindergarten.
But if they want to enroll,
correct.
we are required to enroll them.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, but that registration can absolutely be shared out,
Mhm.
sent out.
Right. I just wanted to
Um,
make sure, like, on just understand how clear we were on those numbers. Because if we could be looking at more late ads for residents, that might change how I feel.
Hmm.
Because maybe we'll already have more than 24.
It's possible.
Right.
but even if we have like 30, worst case scenario, we're still going to have 15 kids in a classroom. That's not a lot.
if there are 2 classes.
And there are going to be 2 classes. That's what
Mhm.
we were discussing.
Correct.
So, I mean,
This
even in
wouldn't be
private
coming back
schools,
except for the 2 classroom decision.
Right.
So
the numbers are higher than that in a
Mhm.
in a kindergarten classroom. I mean, I believe my kids were in a
Mhm.
22 kids class in a private school. So even if we end up with between 15 and 20 kids, that's amazing.
that's a good problem
Mhm.
to have in our
Yeah.
world right now.
Yep.
Like, I don't think the teachers are going to be overwhelmed with that number. I would say when we get to the 30 per class, then
That's a different story.
that's a
Mhm.
different story.
So I know this is a fraught conversation for some of us. If we're going to do this, let's pull the Band-Aid or not. So anybody else want to weigh in?
I say we should do that for 2 students. It's
And we
not a big
could
number.
split the difference. We might not go all the way to 6. We might say, let's add an
4.
extra 4. And that way, if there are more locals, we're not going to be looking at 18 kids per room, which I don't think we have that many locals coming in.
I don't think we do.
I would like that problem.
It would be a
Yes,
great-
exactly.
Great
I want
problem.
to ask for that problem.
So opening up 4 more slots would be splitting the difference or compromising. Yes?
Yes, that would be, and that would put it at 13 per room plus any additional locals that came in. Actually, no, it would be higher than that, sorry. So right now we could go to 24. If we added more, we'd get to 20. If we added 4, we would get to 28, which would
It's
be
14.
14 per room. Plus, that would leave 2 seats available for new locals, should they move in, and still reaching the recommended class size.
And even if it was 4 new locals, that's only 6.
Then it would be fine.
Still pretty reasonable.
Yes, it's,
Yeah.
so I would make a motion to approve 4 additional slots in the kindergarten class size.
Is there a
School
second?
choice.
I would like to second that.
Amon seconds. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of adding an additional 4 kindergarten slots, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that's a 4 to 1.
Did you vote?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, it was.
Watching front.
It's a
It's
quiet
not a
vote.
simple question, I
No,
understand.
it's not.
Okay. With that, I'd like to, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect. I would like to take a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Kathy moved and Adam seconded to move into executive session. I believe it takes a roll call vote. We're getting good practice on roll call votes tonight.
Sullivan, aye.
Green eye.
Bench I.
Engelhardt, aye.
Boudreaux, aye, and we do plan to return to take 2 final votes this evening. So with that, John, we promise you we will be fast.